Does that make sense to you when 2 games in, we're saying he can't play? Yes, his confidence was shattered. Yes, he does need to sit behind Andy Dalton for a little bit. But to blame this on Bryce Young is ridiculous. The blame here goes to the organization, the owner, for mishandling.
The Bryce Young situation just continues to get worse, and it's gotten to a very strange place for the Carolina Panthers, and even Bryce Young. People have even dug up some information on him that you only would really get on the internet. So before we get to the content, we're on the grind to 1 million subscribers. We're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel, and now that we get all that out of the way, work! If you took my Monday Night Football picks, congratulations on 5xing your money. This man used the Caleb Williams free square to turn $20 into $135, but this maniac was able to turn $30 to $1,020. And the good news is Prize Picks is running 2 more weeks of the Caleb Williams free square, and I have some ideas to make us some free money. If you haven't signed up for Prize Picks and you're really good at guessing how well players will perform in games, I highly recommend it. And right now they're hooking up my subscribers fat. When you use my promo code Mikerophone, get a free $50 when you play an entry of $5 or more. I'll leave a link to it in the description down below, and I give away all of my picks for free on my Instagram. I'll have additional picks in my Instagram story at The Flight Mike, and thank you Prize Picks for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? At this point, you guys understand how we got to this position. The Carolina Panthers made one of the worst trades in NFL history, giving up DJ Moore, the 9th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, which the Bears used to select Darnell Wright, 61st overall pick that the Bears used to select Tyreek Stevenson, a 2024 first-round pick, which turned into the #1 overall pick of this year's NFL Draft, which was Caleb Williams, and a future second-round pick. Now, so far, Caleb Williams has been struggling. We made our own separate video on that, and we'll leave it in the end screen if you guys want to check it out. Whenever you give up this much capital to move up to the #1 overall pick, you're expecting this quarterback to be so good that despite gutting out your entire team, you should be able to carry the franchise for future years to come. But it seems like from the very beginning, the Panthers were very unsure about Bryce Young's talents, because during the pre-draft process, you had assistant coach Josh McCown say this to CJ Stroud.
Well, no, I got to do a little
But at the same time, you have David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, saying that they really were expecting to draft CJ Stroud, but ultimately they were able to get Bryce, and they were happier with Bryce.
Originally, we were going to go to the #2 pick, and we thought we would get CJ because we thought the Texans were going to pick Bryce. And listen, we preferred Bryce. He was our #1 pick. We had a lot of conviction. I supported the coaches, I supported the scouts, and I supported Frank Reich. So as far as Bryce Young is concerned, we are totally confident in that pick.
Now, Bryce Young's rookie season was a catastrophe. His best wide receiver was an older Adam Thielen, and his offensive line was terrible. His head coach, Frank Reich, was fired in the middle of the season, but for the most part, most fans gave him a free pass. And the Panthers completely overhauled their team in the offseason. They brought in a brand new general manager, Dan Morgan. They hired a brand new head coach, Dave Canales, who had a reputation of resurrecting Geno Smith's career, which nobody was expecting, and also resurrecting Baker Mayfield's career after the Panthers did damage to him. On top of that, the Panthers went out and completely remade their offensive line, bringing in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, and they also got Austin Corbett back from injury. As a matter of fact, at this point, the Panthers have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. It's a top 5 offensive line. They also made a very intelligent trade, not really giving up much to get Deontay Johnson from the Steelers. Considering that this team had no assets at all whatsoever, these were all intelligent moves to try to right the ship. Yeah, it may have stung, but the Panthers also traded Brian Burns for a second-round pick. So this team's in a full-scale rebuild at this point, and they made significant moves and strides to get Bryce Young the help he needs. But ultimately, Bryce Young's first pass of the season was an interception, and he played horribly in the first game of the NFL season and the second game of the NFL season. If you just take a look at the footage of the second game of the NFL season and the first game of the NFL season, it makes a lot of sense why the Panthers eventually made the decision that they did. Dave Canales would come out and straight up lie to the masses.
I start quarterback. We're going to just continue to shore up and fix the things we need to fundamentally from a scheme standpoint. All those things, these are all valuable reps. These are all valuable games. We'll learn a lot from this game, and and hopefully they'll take another step this week.
Before ultimately the Panthers decided to bench Bryce Young. Now, it's really cute because Dave Canales is already in this very uncomfortable position. He's trying to save face for David Tepper.
I want to keep that private. What I would like to say though is this is something after I watched the film, I looked at it, had a thought, started working on talking to the guys that we make decisions with. Certainly a lot of parties involved there. And ultimately this comes on me, and my number one responsibility is to help the Panthers win. And so this move, I believe, puts us in the best chance to do that this week.
Yeah, for sure. David Tepper had no role in benching Bryce Young. It's not like this guy's notorious for having no patience at all whatsoever, and for literally ending his starting quarterback's career. I mean, man, I can't even believe Canales took this job to begin with, because this is such a bad situation. And now you're just getting the most bizarre interviews as a result. I mean, Dave Canales is obviously going to be asked about how Bryce Young is doing following the benching of the #1 overall pick of the 23 draft that you gave up all of your team for, and this is what he has to say.
Yeah, he's running the scout team for the defense. He had a fantastic day just playing quarterback there, driving the guys and making sure that we're attacking the defense and forcing them to be true on their principles.
Oh yeah, that guy that we gave up a 9th pick, a 61st pick, Caleb Williams, and a 2nd round pick with our wide receiver 1. Yeah, he's doing a great job running the scout team. You know that guy that I was literally brought in to save? He's doing a wonderful job running the scout team.
But here's where it gets really, really fascinating, because everybody has a different take on this position. So much so that I can't believe I'm about to say this. I think for once in my life, I agree with Mel Kiper and his take, and it kind of scares me. Watch.
I think it's mishandled is the word, because when you drafted Bryce Young, you knew he was an outlier. You know, with Bryce Young, not only short, but small, diminutive quarterback, needed help, right? Also continuity. You draft a quarterback, everybody said he's got this great infrastructure in Carolina around him, right? But then you go into this year, you change everything because C.J. Stroud's doing so well in Houston. So we bring in an offensive coach who was with Baker and others, right? Bring in a new pass game coordinator, new quarterback coach for Bryce Young. Then we don't play him in the preseason. Does that make sense to you? When 2 games in, we're saying he can't play. Yes, his confidence was shattered, right? Yes, he does need to sit behind Andy Dalton for a little bit. But to blame this on Bryce Young is ridiculous. The blame here goes to the organization, the owner, for mishandling.
Now, everybody has a different opinion on this. I mean, Adam Thielen said this about the benching.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough for everyone. It's tough for a competitor and athlete. But at the end of the day, you can take it one of 2 ways. Like, it is what it is. That was the decision that was made, and you can either take it in a positive way and show up today and sling the ball all over the field like he did today, and impress all of us by his character and his leadership. It wasn't by chance that he's a captain of this football team. It was not a just handed out C on his jersey. That was a voted on thing. So he proved that today, his leadership, his character, by just coming out there and doing exactly what he's supposed to do.
Whereas Deontay Johnson believed that the best chance that the Panthers have is with Bryce Young starting.
He's our quarterback, he's our guy at the end of the day, So clicked as soon as I came in, so I go, just because we had lost 2 games, but it don't mean I'm going to switch up on him or whatever. So, like I said, I got his back regardless.
You feel like he gives you the best chance to win?
Yeah, no doubt. No question.
Ultimately, the opinion I care about the most is what Baker Mayfield had to say about this, because once again, we have an owner that is notorious for sabotaging the careers of every single starting QB he's ever had. I mean, this meme is absolutely insane if you think about it. Since David Tepper took over, Cam Newton, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young, and now whoever the #1 overall pick of this year's NFL draft is going to be. And you can best believe if the Panthers get the #1 pick, there's no way Deion Sanders is going to let Shedeur Sanders go to the Panthers. You remember when Deion Sanders said this?
I know where I kind of want them to go. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget Shallow, okay? Mm-hmm. But I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't gonna happen.
Okay, you on point.
It's gonna be. I'm sorry. It's gonna be an Eli.
If I'm any starting QB, I would not want to go to the Panthers. And if I'm the Panthers, I would not want to draft a quarterback with the #1 overall pick. I think you have more pressing needs that you need to work on. I really like what Baker Mayfield had to say.
See, mine didn't happen in the same time frame with Bryce, but quarterback's hard, especially for young guys when you're not surrounded with the pieces that you're not given the opportunity to have success. And so a lot of the time, guys have the talent, they might have the brains, but they don't have the right opportunity, the right fit. I'm sitting here right now in a way better fit than the other places I've been. And that's not to put other teams down, but it's a matter of the pieces around you, the coaches, and for Bryce, a guy that, I can relate to this, finding that belief within yourself again, and he'll get it. His story's far, far from finished.
And Baker Mayfield had a very rough NFL career so far, being drafted by the Cleveland Browns and literally being their best quarterback since they came back to Cleveland. I don't think fans have ever had more hope than when Baker Mayfield was their starting QB. And yes, there were some rough years, like in his second year when he endorsed Freddie Kitchens and Freddie Kitchens had no idea what he was doing. So he regressed a little bit, but in year 3, he looked like a model quarterback, 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. In year 4, he tried to be a warrior and play through injury, and he clearly regressed. And also, OBJ's daddy called him out. They decided to move on from him and give up 3 first-round picks to trade for Deshaun Watson before paying him the craziest contract in NFL history just so Deshaun Watson could be a glorified dink and dunk QB, which is just crazy because they've had so many bad quarterbacks in their history, but now they're defending a guy that has so many terrible allegations against him, and on top of that has been a terrible QB. But after that, goes to Carolina. Carolina doesn't pay that much to get him. It doesn't work out in Carolina. He plays briefly for Sean McVay and the LA Rams. And then Tampa Bay signs him to a prove-it deal. Many people thought that he was going to lose his job in training camp, but he held on to that job and hasn't let it go since. And at the point that we're making this video, has thrown 5 touchdowns to 1 interception on a 74% completion percentage in a very young season. So if there's any hope for Bryce Young, it definitely should be received from Baker Mayfield. But what's causing a lot of fans to be confused, myself included, is if you take a look at Bryce Young's rookie season, this man made some remarkable throws that were either dropped or his receivers would just let him down in some particular way, or they would be completed. But at the end of the day, these were NFL level throws. You weren't getting the version of Bryce Young that you currently see in the NFL. And that's what's causing a lot of fans to be very surprised here, because Bryce Young looked very promising in his rookie season whenever he had time to throw the football, whenever his offensive line protected him, whenever his wide receivers were able to separate. So that's leading to a lot of fans wondering what the hell is going on with Bryce Young, because the assumption was the moment that he was able to get an offensive line, he would turn into a much better QB. If you take a look at his highlights from his rookie season, you could also tell that he hasn't been performing this way at all whatsoever. And Bill Barnwell goes into this. A huge reason why Bryce Young got benched was, had Young been struggling in 2024, the same way he had been struggling in 2023, the Panthers should have given him more time, but that just wasn't the case. He has been much worse. His raw numbers are abysmal, and even if they are inflated by garbage time where Carolina has spent most of the second half of its games, his lone touchdown drive through 2 games came when trailing by 34 points in the third quarter against the Saints in the opener. In 2023, when the Panthers had at least a 10% chance of winning their games per ESPN's win probability metric, Young's 34.3 QBR and 4.2 yards per dropback were the worst marks in the league for qualifying QBs. In 2024, in those same situations, he has a 1.4 QBR and is averaging 1.1 yards per dropback. While acknowledging it's only a 2-week sample, nobody's ever played that poorly in non-garbage time situations over any sort of extended period of time. The only passer with a sub-20 QBR in those situations who qualified for a passing title was, of all people, former Panthers draftee Jimmy Clausen in 2010. Barnwell also mentions a 2-play sequence in the third quarter of Sunday's loss to the Chargers that might have convinced coach Dave Canales that it was time for a change. With the game already out of hand, the goal was likely to find Young some confidence-boosting completions, and it didn't happen. On a 2nd and 7, Canales called for a boot concept to the left side of the field, with 3 receivers flooding the same side to give Young a half-field read. He successfully exited the pocket and escaped an unblocked rusher, but he didn't set his feet before throwing, and his pass to a wide-open Deontay Johnson missed badly. On the next snap, Young worked to the left side of the field and found nobody open. With the opportunity to climb into the pocket and try to make a play, he exited the left side of the pocket, where pass rusher Joey Bosa was able to chase him down for a sack. Veteran receiver Adam Thielen, believing he was open for what would have been a long completion, visibly signaled his frustration at the end of the play. That's even resulting in a fan asking if Bryce Young's girl left him or something while he's posting highlights of Bryce Young. And this is where the internet is absolutely undefeated, because you scroll down and another fan says, not gonna lie, she actually did. They caught her with Tyrese Maxey at the Eagles game. So now fans have a crazy theory, and I'd like to think that it might be more nuanced than this, but here's what the theory is. Last year, when Bryce Young was about to make his debut for the Carolina Panthers, he arrived at training camp with his girlfriend. His girlfriend is a woman by the name of Myra Gordon, but now Myra Gordon has been spotted at an Eagles game with Tyrese Maxey, and well, on top of that, there's a bunch of content with her and Tyrese Maxey together. These two are confirmed to be together, and some fans are speculating that's why Bryce Young has been generationally bad. And when you just take a look at the man's demeanor in these interviews, man, it really just looks like he's not doing so well. It's gotta be the toughest week of his life. Losing your girl and your job must be very difficult. I try not to delve too deep into players' personal lives, but it's just a theory that some fans have come up with. Now, we don't really know what the future is gonna look like for Bryce Young. At a very minimal level, at the very worst, this guy is getting paid something like $35 million to back up Andy Dalton. My personal belief is at a specific point, the Carolina Panthers would have to give Bryce Young another chance to start. But when you ask Bryce Young, he said that he doesn't mind if he has to continue his career elsewhere. At the same time, he doesn't mind continuing his career in Carolina. I just want to make that clear. So according to this article by David Newton, the same individual that posted the video of Bryce Young arriving at camp with his girlfriend, David Newton of ESPN reported that Young is open to wherever his future lies, whether it is in Carolina or elsewhere. A source close to Young said the quarterback is open to anything as it pertains to staying with the Panthers through the end of his rookie contract or being traded to another team. Now, what teams are possible for Bryce Young? Well, Dan Graziano of ESPN speculated that the Miami Dolphins, New York Jets, LA Rams, and Seattle Seahawks should not be ruled out as potential suitors. All of those are remarkable situations. I think if I were to rank each and every one of those situations, it would probably be something like Dolphins coming in at last place because they clearly have a bona fide starter in Tua. Obviously, his health has been in question recently, but I don't think that's going to be where his long-term future would be. I'd say following that, you could put the Seattle Seahawks there, although they have an all-world wide receiver core. I'm not saying that the Seahawks are a bad option at all whatsoever. I mean, they have Jackson Smith-Njigba, they have DK Metcalf, they have Kenneth Walker, they just got a brand new head coach, but I just feel like the Rams with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and an older Matthew Stafford throwing them the football would be a great situation for Bryce Young to continue to develop. Then obviously, number one is the New York Jets. You sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a season or two. It worked wonders for Jordan Love. When you're done, you have Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, maybe Mike Williams, a great defense. You're playing in New York. I mean, I think that's a remarkable situation for Bryce Young. At the end of the day, though, I think it'd be so bizarre if just 2 games into Bryce Young's second season, we saw him never play again. On top of that, it's important to note that Bryce Young doesn't have any trade value. Like, if you look at previous quarterback trades of first-round QBs that just didn't pan out for their respective teams, Josh Rosen got a second-round pick in a trade to the Miami Dolphins before the Cardinals selected Kyler Murray. Nick Foles was able to get a 4th-round pick in 2020 when he was traded from the Jaguars to the Bears. But recently, teams have traded much later picks. I mean, Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett come to mind here. Kenny Pickett was traded for a 3rd-round pick and 2 7th-round picks, whereas Mac Jones was traded for a 6th-round pick. I could assume that you could get Bryce Young for a 2nd or a 3rd-round pick, but if I'm the Panthers, I'm holding on to him as much as possible. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think Bryce Young's future is? Do you think the Panthers would give him another chance? Do you think it's his ex that's causing all of this, or do you think it's something else? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.